What's up, everyone? This is Lucas Ross Sports, and you're watching my Lucas Ross Sports channel. It's time for my reaction to the top 25 college football playoff rankings, the first top 25 for the 2022 college football season. The college football playoff rankings came out last night. I'm going to give you my honest reaction to this college football playoff top 25. There were definitely a lot of surprises, though, to the top 25 last night. Some teams that I thought would get in, some of them didn't make it in. And, that's pretty surprising to me. I guess the committee did a lot of things differently. It was just based off of how the teams played week by week. But let's just jump right into it here with the top 25 college football playoff rankings. I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on these rankings as we head down from top to bottom. We'll start from bottom to make our way to the top. So let's just jump right into it here. We start from 21 through 25, UCF at number 25, Texas at number 24, Oregon State at number 23, NC State at number 22, and then Wake Forest at number 21. Looking at these, top five teams in 21 through 25, UCF and Texas are pretty much big surprises. UCF is ranked in the AP poll, but how are they ranked in the college football playoff standings? I mean, that really does make no sense at all. Texas makes no sense at all as well. Texas really doesn't have a quality win this year. I mean, of course, that quality win was to Oklahoma, but Oklahoma turned out to be terrible this year. And then UCF, I know they beat Cincinnati this past weekend, but I don't think that's still going to be enough to get you into the college football playoff rankings. Yes, they just beat Cincinnati, a team that went to the college football playoff semifinal last year. That's not going to get you in, but it's just really surprising me that UCF and Texas are both in the college football playoff rankings, and Texas is not even ranked in the AP top 25. UCF is ranked in the AP top 25, but that just doesn't make any sense at all. Texas, though, I mean, they haven't really had some quality wins this year. I mean, that only win is to Oklahoma. They blow them out. I mean, they had a pretty good one against Alabama, but they didn't win that game. So it just doesn't make any sense that the committee would put Texas here in the college football playoff rankings. Oregon State at number 23. I think this is a good Oregon State team that could probably make a jump into the top 15 by the end of the year. It just depends on how they play in the rest of the season. Remember, they still have to play Oregon on the schedule, but this is a team that can really compete with Oregon. I mean, they competed against USC. I mean, this team is a team that you don't want to sleep on in the Pac-12. NC State, another kind of big surprise here that they would rank them here at number 22. Yes, they're ranked in the AP poll. I can agree with that. I mean, they're 6-2, but they've lost to a couple ranked teams this year. I mean, they've lost to, of course, Clemson, and then also lost to Syracuse. And I think the injury to, their quarterback, Devin Laurie, is going to really hurt them a lot. I mean, it's going to really hurt them probably for the rest of the year, and they probably won't last in the college football playoff rankings by any time soon. Wake Forest, kind of the same thing, but, they have Sam Hartman at quarterback. He was not playing the first couple games, but I think this is still a good Wake Forest team. I just don't think they probably should be ranked, in the top 25, perhaps, in the playoff poll, because, they got blown out by Louisville. Let's be honest, they got blown out in that game. And surprisingly, Louisville is not ranked in the college football playoff and also, in the AP top 25. Maybe they get another win this weekend. Maybe they move up into the top 25. So we'll just have to find out. But it's just really surprising that Texas and UCF are in this top 25. I really just don't agree with Texas being here in the top 24, in the top 25. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all. Let's go to 16 through 20 now. Syracuse at number 20, Tulane at number 19, Oklahoma State at number 18, North Carolina at number 17, and then Illinois at number 16. Looking at this Syracuse team, I mean, yes, they're coming off a couple losses in a row to Notre Dame last weekend, and then, of course, they lost to Clemson a couple weeks ago. I mean, turnovers really killed Syracuse in the last couple weeks. I mean, maybe they won't last in the college football playoff rankings that long. Yes, they're ahead of NC State just because they beat NC State. I mean, obviously, they're going to be ahead of NC State. Syracuse, though, they're in trouble right now. They're in really big trouble after losing a couple games in a row. So the Orange are right now in trouble. I don't think they will last that long in the college football playoff rankings. Tulane, number 19. I think they make a big jump to the top 15 probably by the end of the year. They're 7-1, battling for that American Athletic Conference championship first place run. Cincinnati and UCF are battling for that spot. You know what? Another interesting thing about these rankings is that Liberty is not even ranked. I mean, they are 7-1, and also they're ranked in the top 25 AP poll, but they're not in the college football playoff rankings. Maybe they don't really get the respect they do, and Tulane just gets that respect. I mean, UCF gets that respect as well, but Tulane, though, they're ranked number 19. Oklahoma State, another team that I am pretty surprised that they're ranked in the top 20. I thought they would be outside of the top 20. Maybe somewhere between 21 through 25. Maybe they could have been the team that, replaces Texas in that rankings. You look at Oklahoma State. They beat Texas a couple weeks ago. And, they haven't had some big wins this year. But, obviously they got blown out by Kansas State. So, I mean, I could see why they moved down a lot in the college football playoff rankings. They're 6-2, though. Maybe they finish out the year at 10-2. You never know. So, I mean, this team can probably turn it around pretty easily. North Carolina at number 17. This is a team that, hasn't really had a lot of tough competition this year. Of course, their only loss is to Notre Dame, which they could have won that game and probably sit there at 8-0. Same thing with Illinois. I mean, both of these teams are at the top of their divisions. North Carolina is at the top of the ACC Coastal Division, and then Illinois is at the top of the Big Ten West. Now, both of these teams, I mean, they probably do have a tough stretch coming up, with the schedule, but, Illinois, I think they can probably win the Big Ten West. North Carolina North Carolina is already heading to the ACC Championship, so it's not like they're going to have a really tough schedule ahead of them. So North Carolina, Illinois, I think are about the same thing. They are battling, to finish just first in their divisions. All right, 11 through 15 now. Penn State at number 15. They lost to Ohio State this past weekend. Really, a lot of turnovers killed that game. I mean, it's just been about turnovers. Turnovers have really killed a lot of teams, and that's really been, really going down in their rankings, and that's why I think, the committee just goes with the turnovers as well. Penn State, though, they're at number 15. Utah at number 14, Kansas State at number 13, UCLA at number 12, and Ole Miss at number 11. Penn State, though, I mean, they already played a tough competition against Michigan and Ohio State, so maybe they finish out the year at 10-2. They're pretty much out of that Big Ten East conversation, but I kind of agree with them being here at number 15. They've had some great wins this year, but they haven't really beaten a lot of ranked teams this season, so it's just really hard to predict, I guess, for the committee to where Penn State would be at. Utah at number 14. Utah losing to UCLA. And also what's really interesting, how is Utah ranked number 14 if USC is ahead of them? That just makes no sense at all. We'll talk about USC in just a minute, but it just doesn't make any sense at all that Utah is behind USC. Maybe USC should be ranked number 15, perhaps, maybe ahead of Penn State, maybe honestly, but, Utah is at 6-2. I guess the record really doesn't matter at all because, Utah already beat USC in the regular season, so it's just not like, it just doesn't make any sense at all that Utah is behind them. Yes, they've had some couple tough games, of course, that Florida loss earlier in the year, but they could have won that game. And then, of course, they had that loss to UCLA as well. So, it just doesn't make any sense that Utah is ranked number 14. Kansas State at number 13, just coming off that blowout win against Oklahoma State. I think this is a perfect position for Kansas State. Yes, they got beat by TCU, and they also beat Oklahoma State. So, yeah, they should be right behind TCU. So, I think, Kansas State fans will be happy with that. UCLA at number 12, they're in a pretty good spot as well after that Oregon loss. I think they will lose probably more games, by the end of the season, but you never know what can happen. These playoff rankings could shape up to be a big change probably by the next weekend. So UCLA at number 12. Ole Miss at number 11, which is kind of surprising me. Ole Miss hasn't really beaten a lot of ranked teams this year. LSU was a matchup that they could have won easily, and they probably would have been sitting there in the top 10. But no, Ole Miss is at number 11, and that just doesn't make any sense at all. They haven't really, had some, top 25 wins this year. They still have to play Alabama on the schedule. They beat Texas A&M this past weekend, so if they can beat Alabama, maybe that makes a big jump for them. But if they lose another game down that stretch, they're going to really move down. I think this is a New Year's Six Bowl team, but I just don't think they should be really ranked this high in the college football playoff rankings. They're ranked number 15, I believe, in the AP poll as well, so it just doesn't make absolutely no sense. So a lot of big surprises here. All right, 6 through 10. This is where the rankings kind of get confusing to me. I mean, LSU at number 10. Yes, I can agree on that. They just beat Ole Miss. And then USC at number 9. That just does not make any sense whatsoever. They're ahead of Utah. Somehow they're ahead of Utah. Maybe they just care about the record, perhaps. But it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Utah beat USC. I mean, you look at that game. It was a close game. USC was ranked pretty high in the AP poll, and Utah pretty much pulled off the big upset. But they don't really have respect for Utah in the committee. I don't really understand why USC is ranked ahead of Utah. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Oregon at number 8, coming off a win against Cal. They had that loss to Georgia earlier in the year, but they've gotten better as a team. I mean, they're starting to see this team, a lot better throughout the end of the season. And I think they have Oregon ahead of USC just because they had the better resume, ever since losing to Georgia early in the year. Oregon just has a better resume than USC, so I think I can agree with that as well. I mean, I think fans would kind of argue that Oregon is behind TCU, but let's be honest, TCU has had some big couple wins this year, of course, against Oklahoma when I think they were ranked, and then they had, that win against Oklahoma State. And they also beat Kansas as well. Kansas obviously was ranked as well, so they've had a lot of top 25 wins this year. Maybe they, maybe when they get behind in the games, they probably just don't want to put TCU ahead of Alabama. And speaking of Alabama, they're ranked number 6. Alabama, no surprise whatsoever. I mean, honestly, I knew they would be ranked, a little bit lower. 2 spots behind the 4th place or the 4th seed or something like that. Alabama, though, I mean, that game against Tennessee proved to be a disaster. So, I mean, honestly, I could see why Alabama moved down a couple spots. But they do play LSU on the road this weekend. That is going to be a big-time matchup. LSU could make a big jump. Alabama could make a big jump. It's going to be really interesting by the end of the year. But USC just doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know how they're ranked in the top 10. It just doesn't make any sense. All right, the top 5 now. This is where things kind of get a little bit shaked up. You got Michigan at number 5, Clemson at number 4, Georgia at number 3, Ohio State at number 2, and Tennessee at number 1. Now, Tennessee I can agree with because they are the most dangerous team in the country right now. And then Michigan, how is Michigan ranked number 5 and Clemson is ahead of them? I mean, yes, Michigan hasn't had a lot of, big ranked games, ranked wins this year. But Clemson, I mean, how can they be ahead of Michigan when Clemson's offense is just really, not all that explosive? Michigan's offense has been really explosive this year. And Michigan has played, some tough teams in the Big Ten, but they just turn out to be terrible teams. They haven't really played a lot of ranked teams. They just turn out to be terrible teams. And that's the same thing with Ohio State. I think Michigan should be ranked in the top 4, but Ohio State the same way. How are they ranked number 2 and they're ahead of Georgia? This team had to come from behind and beat Penn State. And then Georgia, obviously, I think a couple of those games, maybe they look back on those Kent State and Missouri games, and they probably think that Georgia should be ranked really high at number 2. I think Georgia should at least be ranked at number 2, but I don't really think it makes any sense whatsoever. So, I mean, Georgia obviously ranked number 3, and then Ohio State at number 2. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever that Ohio State is ranked. I mean, Ohio State hasn't really played anybody tough all year long. Yes, they played their toughest competition this past weekend, and Penn State obviously was a team that could have beaten Ohio State, to be honest. But if you look at all the teams that Ohio State has played, they have not played tough competition. They haven't been ranked, and they are also not really that good of a team. Michigan State turned out to be terrible this year. Iowa turned out to be terrible this year. So, I mean, it just doesn't make sense whatsoever. And Tennessee is obviously one of the, top offenses in the country. This is probably one of the most dangerous teams in the country as well. So, I know I can agree with Tennessee being here at number 1 because you look at the teams they have played. They played Pittsburgh when they were ranked. They were ranked number 17 by that time. Florida was ranked when they were ranked in the top 20. You had a big win against Kentucky this past weekend and also against Alabama, then LSU on the road. they've taken care of business in all their games. Well, the Alabama game was a lot closer because, it's obviously a rival game, but that is my reaction to the top 25 rankings. Do I agree or disagree? I really disagree with some of these rankings because it just doesn't make sense that Ohio State is ranked ahead of Georgia and also Clemson ranked ahead of Michigan. And also, UCF and Texas being in the top 25 as well. It just really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But let me guys know what you think about these college football playoff rankings. And stay tuned here for more on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.